The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
Special Education Family Engagement Coordinator, 12 months at the district office, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Jan?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Dork?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye.
Carried 5-0.
I move that the transfers of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Jan?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Dork?
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
And I move that the resignations as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dork?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye.
Carried 5-0. Entertain a motion for adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will adjourn and restart our board meeting in 3 minutes. Well, it was. What time is that going? Yeah.
You're here next
This is our work session, and I'd like to announce that we have 5 board members present today. 2 are excused, and to my left is Dr. Michelle Langenfeld, our superintendent. To my far left is Sandy Heller, our board secretary. And then we also are joined by 2 intercity student council members, Grace Sinclair from Preble High School and McKenna Roman, who comes from East High School. So, is this your first meeting, McKenna? Second, okay, so you have been here before. And then other members of the superintendent's cabinet around the table. I do want to announce that if you are interested in following the handouts on your computer, either here or if you're watching this at home, you can view the board agenda and handouts as well as minutes from past meetings by going to district website at gbaps.org, clicking on Our District, and then clicking Board of Education. On the left menu, you will find a link to agendas and minutes. And this link will take you to a website called Neptune, where all board agendas, minutes, and handouts from board meetings are housed. So both this meeting and archived from past meetings. We also have, this is our time for an open forum, and this is a time for members of the community to speak before the board. Is there anyone tonight who would like to speak before the board? All right, seeing none, we will move to our teaching and learning work session, and that will be facilitated by Katie Maloney.
Thank you, Brenda. We have several discussion items, and we will begin with the Weequahic Elementary School Children's Center for Environmental Science.
Sure, I'd like to have Sarah Lang and Barton on, as well as Laura Pica.
Bless you.
I can move over too.
Thanks.
She's moving cameras.
Is that camera still getting our good side?
Synchronized chair dance
Thank
there
you.
for a minute. But basically, we came to the board in the spring and we shared information on the development of the environmental learning possibilities that we had for Weequahic. This further develops the plan that we have and presents a proposal for the work that will be done over the period of the next few years, as well as the budget implications for some of the development. And it's been a very, very interesting and dedicated amount of work that has been done by 2 different committees that have worked over a period of quite a few months and years really to put this together. So I'd like Sarah and Lori and Ann to be able to share.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for your time tonight. Last November, we came to you before you as a school to ask for approval to continue the exploration stage of making Weequahic Elementary School a Children's Center for Environmental Science. And in alignment with our district's mission and priority of personalized pathways, this Center for Environmental Science will help create students that are college, career, and community ready. One of our strategic directions as a district is to create multiple pathways for success, and in considering Weequahic as an environmental sciences school, students will have a chance to learn and apply their knowledge of state standards through an environmental lens. Additionally, our district prioritizes personalized pathways, and so we believe that having a school that focuses on the environment will continue to improve the academics excellence that's already occurring there by engaging students in STEM projects, challenges, and problem-solving cycles that they will face in their future careers. To that end, for the last 3 years, we've been moving through the phases of idea, explore, discovery, project planning, and hopefully board approval to become an E-STEM school. We began initial conversations in the 14-15 school year. I was able to attend a STEM conference in Washington, D.C., and bring staff to site visits at other schools to see STEM in action. We also hosted an Explore team meeting with partners that included folks from KEEP, which is Wisconsin's K-12 energy program, LEAF, which is Wisconsin's K-12 forestry ed program, UWGB, the Wildlife Sanctuary, and folks from middle and high school, that we would feed into. In 15-16, we were able to send most of our teachers to a week-long workshop called No Teacher Left Inside. The 4th and 5th grade teachers learned about a water quality study and had their students participate in it at Baird's Creek. And we came to a shared understanding of how we define E-STEM. We define it as how we as humans use science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to learn about our environment, solve problems about our environment, and even improve our environment. We also studied the standards, throughout the elementary grades in the content areas of social studies, science, and environmental science. And we developed a progression of learning that focuses on environmental science. Last year, we continued our journey with your approval, and the staff committed to explicitly teaching the engineering design process, as well as had monthly STEM challenges and brought an environmental lens to their classrooms whenever possible. We also met several times to map out our current needs and our future needs. As I said earlier, we created this learning progressions documents, and themes surfaced at each grade level, and essential learnings were identified. For example, in kindergarten, our theme is plants in our environment. So last year, students grew vegetables in aquaponics tanks, and they studied the plants in our Weequahic environment. They worked with Josh DePaul to improve our school grounds by thinning, transplanting, and planting new bushes and flowers and shrubs. In first grade, the focus is on animals in our environment. So students researched and learned about animals in our Weequahic environment because we have a trail cam to capture the animals native to our area. Their capstone project was to research and report about a local animal using green screen technology. So they worked with the tech integrator. Oh, rats. Do we have time or? Well, I can share it with you and you can see that yourself. The students researched animals that were on our trail cam and worked with Rita Janis to do a report. They looked like real reporters that you would see on TV. Carla, is there anything you want to add to first grade?
My kids, they love the trail cam and love that we get new pictures every 3 to 4 months, and we go through them together, and they just get so excited, and then we take our walks back on the trail, and it's just risen their excitement and enthusiasm to learn.
Since the second grade's focus is the interdependency between plants and animals, second graders are in charge of our school garden. They planned, proposed, and planted the garden. They again worked with Josh to determine what would grow best in our environment. They chose cantaloupes, potatoes, and pumpkins. 2 weeks ago, they harvested over 160 potatoes. And now they're thinking about ways to improve the process, as part of the engineer design process. They studied the plants and animals in our environment by walking down to the creek on Weequahic Road and studying the interdependency between the plants and animals there. They created the bubble biome that you see there as they studied the plants and animals to showcase their learning. And I think Jen and Erica, I don't know if there's anything you want to add. I know, Jen, you had talked about improving that for this year.
Yeah, we had talked about the bubble biomes. They had one bubble that was the forest. So as you walked in, they created plants and animals that live in the forest. And they had a presentation. They had to choose a way to present their information. So some of them video recorded a presentation on an iPad. Some of them made a poster. Some of them made a Google drawing or Google Slides. And then the kindergarten and first graders that are learning about the plants and animals are able to walk through those biomes and able to listen and learn about the plants and animals that are in our area. And then this year, they already, because they remember coming through last year, they already have ways that they want to improve these bubble biomes. So we'll see what comes about.
In third grade, the focus changes from plants and animals in our environment to global climate. And one of the challenges they worked on was solving the problem of creating a structure that could withstand severe weather. They invited an architect to the school and discussed things to consider when building their structures. Then they built their structure and had ice cube hail and leaf blower tornadoes hit their buildings to see which ones could survive. They also studied animal adaptations for the various climates that animals live in. So I have Annie and Aaron here. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add?
No, I think what was probably the most fun last year was being able to connect with people locally to enhance the things we're doing. The architect we brought in actually works for Somerville, which did the addition at Weequahic. So as we very spontaneously were in the gymnasium, he started talking about the pipes above us and what they do that I had never looked at, and how it is part of our environment and keeps us safe. And those kinds of opportunities, I think, have enriched what we're already doing and makes the learning more meaningful.
Fourth grade, as I'm sure you're aware, is, the history of our state, and actually our Weequahic environment has a lot of history in it. They learned about the Niagara Escarpment. They went to Madison and learned about effigy mounds and even wanted to create one on our own property, so they did last spring. Their grade level focus is changes in our environment, which is very appropriate because over time with that history there are changes that occur in our environment, and they've already seen that with the effigy mound. In one of the EIE kits, they also had to design a working solar oven. So they had to think about what would be a good insulator to help their oven create the heat or keep the heat in. And in thinking about whether to use foil or foam or paper, they looked at the environmental impact of using those products. And that led to a discussion about the hot lunches and why we don't recycle trays or foil packs or milk cartons. And so they came to me last year as a group and asked if we could start recycling. So I invited Lynette Reimer out, and our school became the first in the area to begin recycling. So we recycle milk cartons and yogurt cartons and paper and deli cartons, and that really was student inspired. In fifth grade, that continues. Those fourth graders are now fifth graders, and their focus is environmental impact and being environmental stewards. So that led to a discussion about composting in our garden. An Eagle Scout offered to build the structure that you see here. It's complete. And the fifth graders this year will use it to compost the food waste from lunch. Oops. These are just some of the quotes that the kids said after they had worked. They were my E-team, my environmental team last year. When considering Weequahic as an environmental science school, we asked ourselves, what do we want the students at Weequahic completing their elementary school career to leave with? And collectively, we determined that the students who finish their schooling at Weequahic should leave with a sense that they can tackle a problem, take a risk, work collaboratively, think critically to solve problems in our environment, and use a continuous improvement process to strengthen their solutions. So we set a goal in our culture and climate portion of our school success plan that 100% of students completing their elementary education at Weequahic will utilize the engineering design loop to solve a problem in their environment and communicate their solution to others as measured by the environmental stewardship rubric. So that's kind of our history, and where do we want to go next? Well, we've worked all of last year talking about how we can make this happen. We worked with Lori Peacock to determine the resources and professional learning and facilities and grounds that would be needed to create the school. We know that when students arrive at Weequahic, the school needs to clearly display itself as an environmental sciences focused school. From signage to the greenery, the school should say that we're an environmental school. To connect our learning with plants and animals, we'd like to have a chicken coop on our school grounds and enhance our current aquaponics tanks through the addition of a greenhouse wall. We'd like to create outdoor learning spaces as well as enhance our learning spaces indoor to encourage collaborative learning and problem solving. We need an inquiry lab. We know that hands-on equals minds-on. Students should be encouraged to refill their water bottles, and we need more books that focus on environmental science. And ideally, we'd create a natural playground and have the funding to have more field experiences for our students. We did invite a couple of landscape architect firms to come out and help us envision what that might look like. And provide some ballpark figures, and this is one rendering. And then this is a breakdown of, of the yearly spending that I think you have in your report.
Do you want to go through the spending? Can you read it?
Can't read it up there, but I can read it here.
You can read it up there.
Currently, we have approximately $53,000 in our budget to spend this year on some modern learning spaces, general supplies, signage, things like that, and continue our professional development needs. Next year would be a very large jump. And then it tails off. I mean, I have the breakdown in my notes.
It's in the
but-
packet.
Yeah. So what do you want to know?
First of all, this is really great. I see that you have Mike Reed and Gail Gary to read on your discovery team. And I think I may have touched on this last year when you came here, but what are the plans, if any, to coordinate or collaborate with the 4K at Oak, with the nature-based 4K at the Wildlife Sanctuary?
Mike is very, he gets a lot of questions about what do we do next? Since
Yeah.
4K is so popular there, what's next? So he does encourage people to head our way. I think our focus is more on environmental sciences and his is more on outdoor education, but there are some similarities. You know, there's still a focus on the environment.
Okay, so,
Ours is very curriculum standards based.
so then you're really not seeing a connection, then, is what you're saying?
I do see a connection, but there are some differences. You know, I still think that we're both very connected to the environment.
Okay, thanks.
Looking at the budget for 2018, 2019, and the facilities and grounds is the largest, increased by $98,500. And that, what is going to be created in that school year? That's going to be.
Okay.
We actually have a breakdown by year, by grade level, by school. I don't know if it's in the report that the board has. That was our worksheet to give to these numbers.
It's not in our packet.
Okay.
It's the PowerPoint.
So we can share that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just have that in our packet.
So-
From what I-
Screen.
So a lot of the expenses are to build the modern learning spaces with new desks, seating, and cabinets. Professional development is a large portion of that. A greenhouse wall, a prairie in front of the building. We would like to do, part of the referendum is a new entry at Weequahic, and so we'd like to expand that there would be some kind of water or some kind of living wall or something so that when you walk into that entrance, it says environmental science to you. We also had in here, wooden benches out in the, outside, so it's all related to really building that environment.
I was thinking that the inquiry lab would be the largest cost. Is that true, or is that just,
Well, and imagine
no? Okay.
let me see. Modern learning spaces, professional development, greenhouse wall, prairie in front of the school, entry water feature, improved benches. And then we also have a breakdown by grade level as well. We can send you this document that has it all
That would
broken
be
down.
helpful for that.
Yep.
That's good.
I
Okay.
think too that one of the things that Sarah and her team are looking at is the use of space at Weequahic. Their library media center is large with a learning, like a reading nook off of it. And so thinking about how that space can also be kind of redesigned so that there's more use for that learning lab and for more of the hands-on. So that's part of the vision that Sarah and her staff are also working on.
We also have new signage, which will cost about $23,000, and the inquiry lab for $15,000.
I was imagining that
Yeah.
larger.
So that, sorry.
Go ahead.
The inquiry lab will be incorporated into your library media space, is that what I'm hearing?
You know, what I'm thinking right now is that front room, we have a community room in the front. What I'd ideally love to see, what I envision is that being an inquiry lab. That can be a combination of makerspace, science lab, and then the greenhouse wall could come out of that. So that would be the front of the school. You'd see that when you pull up, you would see that greenhouse wall. And then the aquaponics tanks could be in there as well.
So that's why it's
Mm-hmm.
I just have to share, I had a chance to go out to Weequahic and have a conversation with Sarah and Lori and Ann and talk more specifically about the work that's been done behind the scenes. And I'm not sure it's quite captured here when you look at all the standards and the staff that sits behind in terms of their hard work and the vision and the excitement and energy that this has brought to Weequahic. I see, and it is infectious, and it will, I've seen students engaged, and I love the hands-on means minds-on. You think about where our students are. I also see, and I'm not sure if anyone's even had that conversation with Gary Miller and the university being so close by and their whole piece around STEM and where that vision is going for our community. And I think about the work that's been done and the standards that will be taught, and some of the things when you talk about how a successful student will leave Weequahic with the skills and mindset, which is really that ability to plug into any area and be successful. It's really been a lot of work, and I applaud you for that energy and that excitement that you've created and vision as well for the district. So.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I would love to see the things that your students are learning about recycling and caring for the environment passed on to every school in the district, if there's a way to establish that interest, that commitment to the environment, and the facility with which you can recycle things rather than, just making it a special thing at Weequahic. I think we should be recycling in every school in the district, and there's certainly materials that we can.
Sure.
They did do quite a project over at East with recycling and composting and vermiculture, so.
And that leads right up to my next comment, is there a way to get our middle school and high school FFA components and environmental classes involved with some of the planning and some of the project building? Because you're right, I mean, they've got a fantastic, and I'm someone who, since my son was at Howe and daughter at Washington, and they're way old now, we still compost with worms in our basement from their science projects. New worm, I mean, the worms are new worms.
Good to know.
We've got our worm condominiums in the basement, so it's something that, you need.
Fishing
and, and these students it needs to become a part of their everyday life. I mean, we've got to protect this environment, and I think it's great what you're doing. I also have a question. Is the chicken coop going to be a year-round thing?
We actually have 2 staff members that have chicken coops at their homes.
And you use them year-round? I mean, do they lay year-round?
Yeah.
Okay.
What a wonderful thing.
That whole chicken
We wanted to connect that to the life cycle. We thought there's almost every grade level has a tie-in that they could use that for hands-on teaching, whether it's life cycles, animal adaptations, survival instincts, things like that. Like there's even the garden, the composting, what they put in and fertilize the garden with. There's a lot from all areas and all ages that could tie in with that.
And those are great compost bins. It was an Eagle Scout that built those. Those are nice.
Yeah.
You don't even have to turn those. They're big enough. They will break down on their own. That's a great compost system.
And I would encourage people to take a look at the video once it's shared, because it really is, shows that spirit, that drive, the creativity of the students and staff coming together at its best. I think that is really a capstone of an example of some of the work that's going into this, as well as future work that'll come once we put together our additional planning. And again, you see how it lays out over the course of the next few years. The $53,400 that is in this year's budget, that's in our proposed budget, of course, but it's the board or what we would be coming to the board with for our.
Right, and if we could you're going to pass on the breakdown,
Yep.
the more specific breakdown
Yep.
of the expenditures. And we'll look forward to the video as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And all right. Our next item will be exploring STEM curriculum documents, science, technology, engineering, and math.
And we have Mike Fries coming forward with us, as well as Cindy Cantwell and Eric Kahn. And in some ways it kind of fits with our conversation as far as how we're fitting in some of our elementary work with environmental work in the sciences and what we have coming forward. This work again represents the work of a broad curriculum committee that focused on our STEM work through a variety of middle schools, and has some information on our core central documents as well.
Evening, everybody. I'm, again, Mike Fries, secondary teaching and learning, and joined tonight at the table by curriculum coordinator Alyssa Hoffman and curriculum coordinator Dr. Eric Kahn. Cindy Cantwell, unfortunately, fell ill today, so I will be pinch hitting for her. So don't hit me up too hard on some of the higher level math questions. So, and I invited both of them up tonight as we are here to actually talk about a series of curriculum items, and we'll let I suppose Ms. Maloney that there's a particular order that you'll introduce them in, but we're ready to respond to them in the order as listed. Thanks again. Thanks as always for the opportunity to bring forward these updated curricular documents for your consideration this evening. The requests that we bring forward to you this evening come from multiple content areas at the secondary level, and as our separate board memos indicate, are a reflection of an inclusive and comprehensive curriculum development process. For each subject area that we bring forward this evening, instructional staff worked with representatives from our department, the Teaching and Learning Department, to analyze standards and develop local content and course essential documents that outline learning expectations for our students. Each area tonight does have a slightly different, interesting story behind it, as you may have read in the memo, and I'll have the team members here answer any questions that you may have and elaborate on a few additional key points and key shifts you may see from where we've been to where we're going. As I've mentioned before, I really, really appreciate the work of our instructional staff who teach these courses, who have given their time and dedication to participate in the process. It is an investment in our students and in our staff when they give us that time to participate in the process. It is an honor and privilege to work with them and work for them. So first up tonight, Alyssa Hoffman will offer some brief remarks to answer any questions that you might have about the Exploring STEM. And then later on, she can answer questions about middle school art. And then a little later on beyond that, she'll talk about some of the science documents tonight. So Alyssa, talk a little bit about STEM, please.
All right, thank you. So the Exploring STEM course represents an update of an existing course on our books, which was Advanced Math and Science Applications. That was commonly called Math and Science Apps, just as in shorthand. And there was some confusion among students about what that actually involved because the term app, of course, has become a technology term. So we felt that it would be appropriate to look at the course during the curriculum process, redo the documents, and also come up with a new title. So we began by meeting with the curriculum writing team, which included 3 teachers who currently taught the course, Blair Swikotowski from Red Smith, Danae Pash from Franklin, and Stacy Sajinski from Washington, and then 1 teacher who would possibly teach it in the future, and that was Jennifer Tennyson from Edison. We all worked together, identified strengths in the course, as well as opportunities where student learning could grow. In the past, we found that different topics were sometimes taught in each building based on the teacher's individual planning and units of interest, and it was sometimes disproportionately math or science-based, depending on whether it was being taught by a math teacher or a science teacher. So with this new curriculum, we've created a common experience for all students, district-wide, that is standards-based and represents a true and deep fusion of science, math, and engineering with hands-on learning. So Cindy Cantwell, as Mike mentioned, planned with me as well. So it was math and science working together. Some of the strengths of the new curriculum that we have, it's a very engaging content base, and it's very easy to differentiate based on student interest. So they can take it and tweak it depending on what each class of students wants to get more deeply into. It's hands-on learning that involves all students. We also worked with a building technology integrator during the planning process to make sure that we were including up-to-date technology, and that was really helpful. Other strengths are that it fosters collaboration and communication among our students, so they actually work together to do these things. And it focuses on literacy with data and graphs, which is a strength that is focused on in both the national math and science standards. Other things that we'll be growing in, there is an increased focus on statistics and probability, which is used in context. So it is with real hands-on application. It's not divorced from that course content. Technology and coding and computer science has an increased presence. The engineering and design process, ability to analyze data, focus on careers in STEM and a connection to academic and career planning, defined links to the new standards in science and math, and use of the cross-cutting concepts and domains. We actually worked with the staff to identify the commonalities and parallels between math and science, and this was an important step in the process because it is taught by teachers with either licensure, so we had math and science teachers working together for one of the first times. From there, we worked through a process of merging the standards and practices from both into one single curriculum.
And that's an overview of that updated middle school elective opportunity. Are there any questions?
Brenda.
And I may just not have caught it, but
That's okay.
So you have math and science teachers working together to develop the curriculum.
Yes.
And so then they're expected then to, if they're a math teacher, they're still teaching the science, and if they're a
Yes.
science teacher, they're still teaching the math.
Yes.
So what kind of professional development is there for those that are crossing into a new area for them, or have they been doing this for years?
They've been doing a lot of aspects of it for years, and the great thing about having just that handful of teachers teach it is that they were with us to do the writing of it. So they actually participated in the writing of the content, and we did a lot of our development on the spot with them.
Why you did that, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I have one more question.
Yeah.
And then, and again, maybe I didn't connect the dots, but you said in the beginning that there's flexibility in teaching this depending on the class you have. And then you also said something about in the past it wasn't consistent. So I'm wondering where the consistency is now when there's still this somewhat some flexibility on the other end.
Yep, there is definitely some flexibility in terms of the applications of the knowledge. So they're all going to be teaching data literacy. Some of them might use an example from airplane flight. Some might use an example from forensic science. So there is the flexibility to use some of those different examples throughout.
So it was the content that was covered that was not consistent in the past.
Right.
So now they have and it's just their flexibility is how they cover it, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This will definitely provide a common framework so that regardless of who is maybe being asked to teach that from a year-to-year basis, they have a lot more foundational commonness, and they can engage their colleagues at the other buildings and say, hey, how is this looking in your building? Whereas before it was a little bit more little bit more scattered.
No one's on an island anymore.
Yeah.
And do we still have is it Eclipse where teachers can put stuff in to share? We don't have that anymore?
As we've gone through our new curriculum development process, we've migrated things out of Eclipse and into our district intranet. We lease space on Eclipse that's hosted by CISA 7. And so by being able to shift into locally hosted within our intranet, it provides us full ownership over it. So, as the teams work their way through with new standards, they can make reference to where they came from, and that's where we would reference the older documents to see what was in there. So Eclipse also, as a curriculum development tool, got more into phase 2 and phase 3 of curriculum development, which would be unit design and instructional pieces. So this is a little bit more of a skeleton framework for us. So.
Okay. Do we have that place to put those? Because I'm thinking with a class like this, one teacher might have something that worked really well. And
we have a Google Drive folder that they
that's
share.
Where it ends up. Okay.
Yep.
And we're in the process of developing Google Classrooms for the kind of phase 2 unit and resource sharing as well as we kind of move down the road.
Yeah,
So.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And then we'll go right to the middle school art curriculum.
That again is Alyssa?
Yep, that is indeed.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So with middle school art, we met with a team from Edison. That was Kathy Lindsley and Jason Keller. Franklin, which was Heidi Gronke and Nicole Everetts. Lombardi, Janet Tolan. Red Smith, Sue Grumman, and then Washington, Mindy Shane. So we had those schools represented during the process. We had done the elementary school art curriculum several years ago. This was the next step in our process of working with the K-12 alignment. So the new middle school art curriculum documents are aligned to both Wisconsin state standards and the new national standards, which are the National Core Art Standards. Those came out in 2014. The Wisconsin standards are divided into grade bands, so by individual grades. The national standards are a little bit different in that they have an increased focus on a spiraling of knowledge and skills from pre-kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So it's more of a deep focus on that progression. We recently adopted the new curriculum for elementary school art, as I mentioned, and we are now starting to work on high school art. So this is the middle step in our process. With the new curriculum, there's an increased focus on ability to create artist statements based on the art that students have created, so they need to write about that as well. They analyze the presentation and preservation of art, so how do we preserve it for years on end? If we're looking at ancient art, even new art, how do you preserve different types of art? And then how do you present it? What is the effect of a presentation in a museum on your influence of the art? Like, how do you perceive the art? We're also looking at exploring career pathways in art and how we connect art with its historical and cultural context and significance. Previously, the team had identified a need for a clearer distinction between the middle school art electives, as well as course titles that were more descriptive. So the new curricula and the associated new titles create a more clearly defined focus for each of these courses. That should allow students to select a course which best matches their own artistic interests. 6th grade students will continue to have the opportunity to take an exploratory art course, which is now going to be called Art Foundations. And then the courses for 7th and 8th graders have also been renamed. The course that was formerly called Idea will now be called Discovering Fine Art, and the course formerly called Image is going to be called Journey into Design.
Questions or comments? I know I'd sign up for those courses.
I know, but I just want to say that when you describe the fact that they will then be able to, after taking the original, is it the art foundations, then as they progress into the higher grades, they're aligned with more of the art that they are attuned, that they would like.
Yes.
So it's really kind of nice to see that they can explore it and then decide which one they're going to funnel into,
Absolutely.
if any. I really like that. That's
Mhm.
excellent.
Thank you.
I think this, as well as the other things that have come forward, are really good examples of or refreshing of the curriculum as it should be, both in title and in spirit and nature. I think the spiraling of the curriculum that's done here, as far as being able to circle back and allow students to go deeper, is very important for all students. And I think it also provides greater definition to how we want the courses taught, what are considered best practices.
Very nice.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you. And now we've got the grade 5 instrumental music and secondary popular music workshop studio curriculum.
And Dr. Eric Kahn will talk a little bit to you tonight about those courses.
So over the last 2 years, we've worked to update the district's music curriculum, beginning with elementary general music, and then last year with 6th grade general music, secondary band, choir, and orchestra, as well as the high school music theory courses. Tonight, we're presenting the curriculum documents for elementary instrumental music, middle school popular music workshop, and high school popular music studio and advanced popular music studio, which will complete the curriculum revisions for all of our current music courses. As with the previously approved music curricula, the grade 5 instrumental music and secondary popular music workshop and studio curriculum align the courses to the current national standards, while also ensuring the students are meeting current Wisconsin standards. As what Alyssa just mentioned with art, we are also using the National Core Art Standards, which provide a common skeleton framework, and then each of the arts areas has identified in detailed learning objectives and learning outcomes underneath those. So what this allows us to do is having a common arts language across all of our arts areas. For the 5th grade elementary instrumental music program, we aligned their curriculum with the previously approved curriculum documents for middle school beginning band and beginning orchestra. The team of teachers then modified it to fit their setting as far as individual and small groups, as well as the amount of time they meet with students each week. The most notable change presented to you this evening is the renaming of the current Rockenstrummen, Plunk and Drummond courses to be Popular Music Workshop for middle school and Popular Music Studio for high school. These courses will continue to teach guitar, keyboard, and percussion skills, and doing so in an introductory way, while also providing students with previous instrument experience the opportunities to advance those skills. Another larger change is with Advanced Popular Music Studio, where students are continuing to refine their skills with more sophistication in music, but also they're going to be preparing for and planning a public performance of their choice. So getting them into the community as far as performance goes. Additionally, beyond just the instrument skills, all 3 courses continue to teach historical and cultural context of popular music. We're studying multiple genres, jazz, folk, rock, among others, and analyzing the role of popular music on both society and themselves. So finally, the next step in our process will be to provide professional development as we roll out the updated curriculum for teachers next year, and we are additionally reviewing resources needed to implement the curricula. So I'm happy to answer any questions on these.
Brenda?
I'm just curious, maybe it's in here and I forgot, but music theory, is that wound into this much? I mean,
There's going to be some
bit,
music theory
yeah.
in any of the music courses, but the actual music theory courses we presented at the end of last year.
Yeah, okay, so there's not, I just was curious how much music theory is woven into the, what's it called, popular music studio classes?
Sure, and there's some in, like I said,
Sort of as needed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions, Council? How are you defining popular music?
So,
At first blush, I thought, well, this makes more sense. It's
Yeah.
clearer than Rockenstrummen, Plunk and Drummond, and I'm thinking, popular in whose opinion?
sure. It's a very fair question. Many hours of lost sleep last year. Not kidding, over this. Eric and I had a lot of dialogue around how to support the team in identifying the appropriate title for this. We started to get into the word workshop after I was actually, I was in Appleton they have a little coffee shop, and there's some middle school students had their own bands and they were playing. And then some high school students had their own bands and they were playing in this coffee shop. And I looked on the wall and I took a picture on the wall because there was a poster. I sent it to Eric. I said, maybe this is the name of the course, because the Appleton Area School District sponsors something that has the word workshop in it that kids take, and then they have a public performance. And so then we said, okay, workshop sounds good. And then we went back and forth on what is the word that goes before workshop. We settled on popular. I don't remember why, but that's what we settled on.
And a lot of the name has to do with music history. So it's the music that flowed out of the traditional classical realm is considered to be like your fine arts, your art music, but popular music would have been coming out of the vernacular folk music traditions. So as we got into recording technology, it's the folk traditions that then evolved over time and becoming more widely distributed.
I knew he'd have a better answer than me.
No, and that makes sense, but it's the timeliness of, when something.
Yep.
Yes,
and I think
absolutely.
Yeah, and it doesn't. It's not pop music. So pop music would be like a genre, like a Billboard Top 40 on the pop chart. So
Right.
popular, it broadens it a little bit differently.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
Okay. I'd also offer that I had the opportunity today to be over at our partners at NWTC as they cut the ribbon on a new business center, and where they serve about 25% of their student body participates in coursework or programs of study in that business area. Within there, they have a music studio that they're installing for recording of music. They have it's a pretty dynamic and neat place, and I think we're excited about how, whereas our students that may not be in the orchestra or the band or the choir, students in the popular music workshop area, that could be something where they find themselves into, I can see how this could turn into recording and production and such. So we're keeping an eye on that, which is potentially very exciting, especially in light of our fine arts strand as well, where we would have potential opportunities there to take this a step further or get kids started on this a little bit earlier in the fine arts strand. So.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you. And then we have the pre-calculus and advanced placement calculus AB curriculum documents.
And Cindy Cantwell again sends her regrets, but essentially, as the memo indicates, the collaborative process that we used was we were able to incorporate the teachers of our pre-calculus and calculus courses. Each building has 1 to 2 teachers that teach these subjects, so the process was one of the first times within the math area that they could actually come together and not feel like they were isolated in their building as the only person. Teams had great discussions and did some deep thinking about what we want students to know and be able to do at those higher level math electives. The major shifts that we see reflected in this work would include that pre-calculus is a culmination of our shift to align our curriculum with the Wisconsin Common Core State Standards for Mathematics, and so we now have Math 1, 2, 3, as well as an Accelerated 7, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and now pre-calculus curriculum documents that will be in place, all aligned with our standards. The AP Calculus AB scope and sequence was recently updated by the College Board of Advanced Placement back in 2016, so it was very timely for us to continue that work and tackle our curriculum documents and use an updated AP set of outcomes as our starting point. Having all the major mathematics courses curriculum in place will from pre-K all the way through calculus now will allow us to view the entire scope and sequence of our mathematics program. The big picture view will now help us as we look at additional or alternative capstone elective courses that complement our students' math experience and further the mathematics understanding so that they are indeed college, career, and community ready. And I just left a meeting earlier this evening with the turbocharged subcommittee in the area of mathematics remediation intervention, where we have an opportunity to align our efforts in our junior and senior level math with their expectations for college readiness, as well as looking at other math electives that maybe we could develop in place in the future. So our spine of mathematics curriculum is in place, and now we can look at what we could potentially build off of. So tonight is pre-calculus and advanced placement calculus AB.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward.
Thank you.
And the Science curriculum documents.
Yes, finally, Ms. Hoffman will again speak about a third content area tonight. Thank you for your patience with all of these. We do appreciate it. And so, Alyssa, can you talk a little bit about what we're bringing forward on the science side?
Yep, so tonight we're bringing forward documents for advanced biology, chemistry, conceptual chemistry, environmental science, and physics. So this represents the continuation. We have been working on elementary science, middle school science, and we've done also physical science and biology, which are our 9th and 10th grade classes. So this was the next step in our curriculum process, just to align all of our K-12 science programs. These elective science courses that we're bringing forward tonight last had curricula written in 2005. Since that time, there have been new national standards developed, the Next Generation Science Standards, and Wisconsin is currently in the process of updating its own science standards. They were released for public comment this last summer. They're going to move towards approval this month. They are quite similar to the NGSS, the National Science Standards in content. So as we were writing last year, we drew from the NGSS, we drew from the AP standards where we could, and we drew from Wisconsin state standards as well. So the curricula that we are proposing tonight for each of these classes are a fusion of those different standards. They are now as current as they can be in terms of best practices. Specifically, they focus on an increased focus on hands-on learning through labs, simulations, and modeling. And the modeling piece in particular is a huge advancement from the NGSS. There is an increased focus on critical thinking and communication. For example, we ask students frequently to evaluate claims and make arguments based on evidence. And there is an increased focus on data literacy and manipulations. How do we work with raw data and process it in order to communicate our findings? So if there are any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
Brenda.
So do the science standards primarily cover what you just explained to us? Does it also include, because I know in the course descriptions there's a, the long list of course level expectations.
Right.
Do those come from the standards, or do those come from where do those come from?
Some of them come from the Next Gen Science Standards, the national standards. Some come from Wisconsin and some come from AP.
Okay.
With the Next Generation Standards, they're not really set up for every course to draw from. There's a base level expectation. For the most part, we met many of those base level expectations in physical science and biology. And so where we could, we would take it and advance it up a level, or we would pull from AP or Wisconsin State.
So the base level things are what you were saying about data.
The stuff about the data literacy and things like that, those are the practices that we're working on, and then the content standards are what we pulled together from the differences.
So some of the content standards came from the Next Gen Science Standards?
Yep,
Okay.
some did.
So is there, in terms of course level expectations, that list, is there significant differences, or does it generally cover what it used to cover?
In some courses more than others. With advanced biology in particular, we drew a lot more from AP than we had in the past, and so it represents a ramping up of that content.
Okay.
I think from a broad perspective, what we see with any of the new standards that have been adopted, regardless of content area, there's a much heavier emphasis on applying, thinking critically, transfer, because rote knowledge can be kind of looked up, found more easily, and now it's like, what can you do with it? So you see that definitely reflected in the next gen. So.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My final comment on the documents we bring forward tonight are, you'll notice that these are not budgetary requested. Obviously, once we get our curriculum pieces in place, then we start looking for what are the resources that support bringing these curriculum materials to life. So as the next couple of years unfold and as budget allows, you can expect that we will go through a resource selection exploration process so that we make sure that the resources support this curriculum, and you can see that in the future.
I also want to thank Mike and Alyssa and Eric, and as well Cindy, but also Nancy Chartier. The team has really done a lot over the past few years of taking what we've had for our curriculum documents and really done a great job of updating them. We've gotten to a point where we're getting through and we've finished that first round with many, and we'll be again coming back again with as it circles around, and we take a look as a perpetually rejuvenating cycle. We are also looking at doing this in a different fashion as the years progress, where we would be bringing, rather than bringing course by course different pieces up, it would be presenting all the summary of all the major curriculum changes so that you can see a better way of how that works together. But that's something that we have as a seed and something that we're planning to bring forward in the future, but it's really been great work that they've done. Very comprehensive, very clear, very much aligned with best teaching practices to make sure that every kid here has the best educational possibilities in front of them. So I want to say thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And that concludes our work session.
All right, well, I didn't realize, or it didn't hit me until after we started our meeting that both Chris and Andrew were gone. So I'm wondering, Katie, if you would be willing to facilitate the organizational support work session? Because that is Andrew and Chris's area, right? Yes, yeah, okay.
So I will begin with the food service overview under business and finance. And team food services here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good. All right. Well, I think everyone knows who I am, but I'm Lynette Solek. I'm the Director of Food Service, bless you, for Green Bay. And I also brought along the other ladies with me because I could not be successful without them. So if you could please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having us. My name is Amanda Frisk. I am the Food Service Specialist.
I am Heidi Gallagher, the Culinary Coordinator.
And I'm Amy Dozy, the Quality Assurance Specialist.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes. All right. Which one should I push? Probably this one. Should I? See, she is our IT person. Oh, look, wonderful. All right. Well, what we want to do is just talk a little bit about 16-17 school year as we're rolling into the 17-18 school year. So for our breakfast, we served last year 936,872 breakfasts a day, or a year. So that would be interesting. A day, yeah, that would be really interesting. A day that came to 5,147 students a day. And these are the reimbursable full meal. It does not include any a la carte. For our lunches, we did 1.6, probably 1.7 million lunches, which comes to 932 lunches a day. And 1,000, thank you. And then for our total reimbursements, we did over 6 million. So it's pretty impressive. We have a wonderful program. Last year when we closed our books, we closed with revenue of $544,000 for the meal program. And with that, we did a lot of positive things for our district, feeding a lot of kids, started a lot of programs. And what we as a team, we're not stopping. We're going to be continuing. We want to continue to enhance our program. So what's happening new in the 2017, in 2017, we have added CEP, additional buildings, and we're going to touch further about this in our presentation.
If you could explain the acronym, please.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Katie. CEP is our Community Eligibility Program at our schools. Thank you. We're going to discuss grants, our breakfast expansion at our schools, the dinner expansion at our schools, the pre-K breakfast and lunch implementation that we actually kicked off today, and also recycling milk cartons and how we have implemented that into our programs.
Thank you. So as Lynette mentioned, we have improved on our community eligibility provision schools. We added 3 more buildings this year for a total of 17 of our buildings being enrolled. CEP allows us to serve students at no cost regardless of their family's ability to pay for their meals. It's a wonderful program. This 17 buildings allows us to serve 6,300 students with the CEP. So it allows us to improve breakfast and lunch participation. It removes the stigma. It gets rid of some of the problems on collecting for meal accounts and things like that. It's a really wonderful program, and we're really grateful to have it in our buildings. We also had a few grants written this summer. I wrote a grant for Dan's Elementary and Aldo Leopold for their breakfast programs with the Action for Healthy Kids. It's a really great grant, $2,000 for each building. It allowed us to really kick off breakfast at Aldo Leopold. They had not had breakfast before, and with this grant we were able to do some really great marketing, and we're going to do some exciting things so that the students have an appropriate style of breakfast as well as the things that they would really like to eat. We also have a really great, wonderful partnership with the Hunger Task Force. They provided us last year with over $90,000 worth of equipment. In exchange, they have also given us great collaboration and ideas. They're really wonderful to work with, and we're grateful for their partnership.
I would like to also jump in here. With the Hunger Task Force, they're very impressed with our school district and what we do here. With our meal programs, FRAC is they overlook all of the meal programs and also with things that are happening with USDA and other policies and what's going out there. And they have asked us numerous of times if we could go on a webinar, if we as our food service department could be available so other food service districts or other school districts with their food service department throughout the state of Wisconsin, so they could hear about the great things we're doing. So, yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah, the Hunger Task Force provides support to a lot of different areas, school districts in Wisconsin, and they sort of lean on us as sort of the go-to and leaders in the area of food service. They commend us on our thoughtfulness on bringing kids what they want and making sure the environment is suitable for them, and being aware of the cultural diversity in our area as well.
Just as a follow-up to that, I know that when we began this project and process and bringing in the Hunger Task Force, it was in partnership with the Green Bay Education Association.
Yes.
That conversation,
Yes.
and I know
And I
the
saw Amanda
representatives
walking.
here right
Yes.
now tonight.
Yes.
So working
Yes.
in partnership,
Mhm.
it sounds like it's really been working well for us.
Well,
So
with the possibility of expanding the CEP program.
program as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and even not only the CEP program expansion with Amanda and with the Hunger Task Force as well, but looking at the existing programs we have and how we can reach more students within the building. If the traditional breakfast before the bell is not working for students, if they'd rather be out on the playground, what can we do to provide breakfast to them? Or even a lunch to them, a meal when they arrive to school, and they have really great ideas. And Amanda has great insight being a previous classroom teacher.
Thank you.
Great segue into our next topic is our breakfast expansion. So Jefferson Elementary has a new principal, and Kate Dolan has been wonderful. Last year she kicked off the Sullivan's breakfast in the classroom model, and she wanted to bring that to Jefferson as well. She took an existing space and converted it to a cafeteria, which is beautiful. I really recommend you go and visit if you can. They've done an amazing job converting that space within just a few weeks before school started. On the first day of school, we had a huge participation throughout the month of September. They had over 90% of students participating every day in breakfast. So that allows us to do some really extraordinary learning in our classrooms. It reduces any behavior incidents. They do a great job in making sure all the students are fed when they come into the building, not just the ones who are there when they're supposed to be too.
And I'm going to expand on Aldo. As Amanda had mentioned, we did receive that grant, and I was fortunate to be out with Sandy, our head cook, on September 18th to launch that program. We served nearly 30 students as well as parents on that very first day. For this program, we offered them a selection of both hot food as well as cold food. As mentioned before, we had never had breakfast at that school site. So to hear the kids and the excitement and the buzz around that, for them to be able to have that as an option, they've really truly enjoyed it. We also will continue to look at that program. I'll be at that site as well tomorrow doing some new exciting things, as well as starting next week, Monday. We're going to be expanding on their entire lunch program, adding salads, parfaits, sandwiches that they'll be able to grab to order that we've never had as an option before. So I know that's not truly breakfast, but we're expanding a lot at Aldo Elementary. As well as Red Smith. Thank you. Red Smith, last year in the past, we used to always have a model where we had elementary as one line at that school site, as well as a secondary food line that the kids had. It was a great dissatisfier because you had to tell kids that were young, nope, sorry, you could not have that, where their older kids might have wanted to cross the lines. So we've looked at the modeling of that meal pattern, and we have allowed the kids to not have that duplication, and they now have the option to be able to have a K through 8 meal. So they have a lot more variety, a lot more options available to them, as well as hot, which we typically don't have.
Could you just explain what Encore breakfast is at 9:30?
Oh, yep.
It was just in the preceding slide.
I'm sorry. So they have the option to be able to come back down. The middle school kids come down at 9:30 in the morning to have the option to be able to have a second chance breakfast. So it's a little bit later in their day. So if they started the breakfast and they had something at home and they weren't hungry right away at that 7:30 time, which is our traditional breakfast time, they have that option to come down before they eat their later lunch at 12:30 to have that option.
I think that's a good example of Aldo being flexible and thinking about student need and some of the hunger issues out there. I know they're doing some work with Ben's Wish and other fun food pieces. And so I think that thinking about the middle school students and the hunger issues, really many of these options are assisting with that.
Correct. Yeah, and I would just put a plug in there. We would love other schools to also consider this. Sometimes it's not feasible with their schedule, so we would love to offer a second chance, or what we call an encore breakfast, to more students. We would love that.
Is that a thing from The Hobbit, first breakfast?
Yeah, second, third dinner, fourth dinner, yes.
I put both of them myself.
I sign up.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay.
Another item that we started this year is offering smoothies. Very first day of school, I was at Edison Middle School with the ladies there putting together our Orange Dream smoothie. I had the pleasure, John was there as well too that day, greeting the students coming in. We only had 23 students participate that very first day. We were handing out samples to encourage them to try something new and different. And as of last week, we're up to serving over 200 servings a day as an additional offering. We're looking to expand that with different juices that we're gonna build the program with. So that's truly exciting, as well as West High School. They heard the buzz and they thought, I wanna be on board with that. So they just started a week and a half ago offering the smoothies as well too at their school site as a breakfast. We actually make them. We could have gotten a piece of equipment, but it was easier for us that we take existing equipment we have. So we get our yogurt in a 4-pound bag. We squeeze that yogurt out. We add a gallon of orange juice, and then we utilize our commodity applesauce. We whisk it all together, and then we pre-portion it into a 9-ounce cup that the kids can get and just sip it out. So we make it typically the day before so that it can chill. But depending upon the volume and usage, sometimes we do have to do more than one batch, so it's not as chilled as much. But it's not made to order, but we do make it fresh. Yep.
It tastes like an orange Julius.
Yep.
It's very good.
Yep.
You had me at Orange Dream.
Yeah. Right? Yep. Okay.
Great. Another program we've expanded a lot is our dinner program. Southwest High School, we expanded to all students, which with like an open model dinner program there on the first day of school, so September 5th. In that, we've doubled our participation compared to last year already within those first few weeks of school. And it's really awesome to see students, when we did the media interview with Fox 11, to say, oh, we have all these options now, and we can do a grab-and-go parfait, or we can do a PB&J, or we can do the hot. And just to see the athletes and kind of the buzz, too, like Heidi was talking about, of students saying, what, there's dinner? And just to be open to them. In previous years, we had only serviced a small classroom of students that was staying there for one activity. Now it's open to all students staying there for any activity after school. So that's awesome. And in expanding that, we've gotten more interest from both East and Franklin to expand their dinner programs as well. Baird and Beaumont also added dinner programs this school year to those elementary schools. So we currently serve dinner at 15 buildings, 15 of our buildings plus 2 Boys and Girls Clubs. And then in addition, we just began to offer snack to the Boys and Girls Clubs also after dinner. Instead of the Boys and Girls Clubs doing the snack program, we are now servicing that snack program for both of the clubs there.
How do you decide where you're going to expand? Who initiates who in the school asks for the service, or how do you determine where you're gonna be?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we're in the correct percentage to offer this meal program. And then also the administration, it is so positive if we can get that partnership with the administration that yes, this is something that we want to do. So with Franklin and with East right now, we are working with them. They're like, well, what time is the other school serving at? Around the activity, is it later? And then also we have to be cognitive of, can we get staff to work? So we have to think about when the students are there, and then can we get staff to work? So we want to make sure it's a really good blend for everyone. And between East and Franklin, I've been working with Joey Chancellor, thank you, yes, thank you, Joey Chancellor, and with Lori Ferrick. So it's been going really well, discussing things and reaching out to the students. And not everyone may look exactly the same. It's what works for that school.
Right.
We don't want to mold every school into how we want it. We are support. We are there for the schools to give them what they need.
Julie?
Do you do the dinner program, is that every night, or is it based on if you have an activity that night that coincides and they're staying later, so then they're able to buy dinner to get them through to that activity?
Well, what we do at all of our locations, it's Monday through Thursday, because also a lot of school activities are going on in the schools on Fridays, so we do not serve on Friday. But at the Boys and Girls Club, we do serve Monday through Friday.
And is this charging wise, do we get reimbursed?
Yes,
for
we get
free
full
reduced?
reimbursement.
So it's charged out the same as lunch if you're?
They're free meals.
Oh, everything
they're
is?
free.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we get reimbursed for everybody, even those that
Yes.
aren't being reduced?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. And what, is that the same lunch program, or is it?
It's under the CACFP, the Child and Children Feeding Program.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just another part. We have a lot of programs in our food service operation.
We do. Laura?
How long have you been doing the dinner program?
Longer than 6 years. That's how long I've been here, and we've been doing it more than that. I couldn't tell you a start date for sure. I could certainly find that through DPI.
I'd be curious to know if offering that kind of program has shown any increase in kids participating in after-school activities, sports and things like that. And do you have any kind of data that shows that, or do you even track it? I mean,
Has it been 6 years at the secondary level?
Yeah, it's just been.
No, probably started this last
Last year,
year.
yeah.
Southwest has been going for probably 6 years because it's with their, more than that, with their Forward Bound.
Yep.
With the
Oh, with
Forward
their
Bound
Forward
program.
Bound.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
But this
was
year
that
is when we
just-
expanded it.
Were you just feeding Forward Bound?
Yes.
students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so
So
now
we
we've
really
expanded
don't
to
have a
everyone.
long enough,
So the
that's a
impact
really
on-
good.
It is.
A really
Mhm.
good
I
thing to
would
kind of
love to
track.
know if after enough time
If
goes
we
by,
can.
if there, and I don't know who you would talk to see if that has boosted participation.
Yeah, we could talk to the athletic director, or, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. And it's really nice because what we have done is we're also working with the coaches, because they still want the students to participate and do the practice. So they're contacting myself and they're asking, well, could they come and purchase the meal and we will have it under proper refrigeration, and so then they can eat it later? Absolutely, we can work with you. So that's been really positive too. So when they're done, they have their parfait or their salad or whatever they did go through the line to get that day, or that evening, I should say.
That's great.
Do you do anything with dinner to go for teams that are leaving to go, away games and things like that? Do you have it, or do
We
they?
have, Yes.
It's all packaged to go?
Yeah. So what we do in that situation when they leave with the meal is we send what we call like a field trip meal. This year we've actually expanded their options too, so they can get like a turkey sandwich with a side salad, or the PB&J, which seems to be a student favorite, or we have a grab and go meal kit, which is different. There's fruit juice, cinnamon grams, beef stick, cheese stick, things like that. So it's more of a balance. They're all balanced meals, but they get options. So when they want to leave for a field trip, let's say they go on an away game or something, they can order the field trip for their like team of 50, and then they can tell us what option that team wants to eat that day. So that's really been a positive thing, and our food service workers, we've been excited that the students get to pick. In previous years, especially with running club and different things, we do a similar thing. So as they run miles and miles and longer to train for marathons or different things, they were getting the same field trip meal after hours, and it was getting a little bit boring. So we jazzed it up a little bit and gave them those options. So they are really excited to have those different options available.
And you're still packing the field trip meals for the elementary
Correct.
schools.
Yes.
They come bouncing off the bus carrying those huge coolers.
Yep.
Size of 3 kids. 8 of them carry it. That's so fun.
Yes. Okay. So also, as we alluded to earlier, we began feeding pre-K or 3 and 4-year-olds in all of our elementary schools today. Today, what we served was 293 breakfasts to all of the AM session students and 283 lunches to all the PM session students. So these are brand new meals that were, or meals and money that were revenue that we're generating for that. These meals are healthy, of course, follow the CACFP meal pattern for the child and adult care food program. So they offer all 5 food groups, and they're appropriately portioned, which means they might get a little bit smaller portions that are not so intimidating for a student to eat, especially that young student, like a 3 and 4-year-old student. So that's been very successful even on the first day already.
A few new a la carte options that we have started recently has been Annie's frozen yogurt. We piloted that at Preble as well as Red Smith at the start of the school year. It's been exceptionally positive at Red Smith. We are serving anywhere from 65 to 75 servings. What the Annie's frozen yogurt is similar to what you'd get at soft-serve ice cream. So if you'd go to like a Cold Stone Creamery or Sweet Mimi's, that you can get that ice cream in a dish, and then they're gonna have the options to have toppings such as strawberries, blueberries, granola, cinnamon shaken on top of it. So we're expanding that program at those 2 schools. As well as last year, I started to work on researching different options for our a la cartes for muffins and cookies. We found that our bakery participation and our sales were just declining over the time. So I actually worked at the school sites. I work with our brokers to bring all different products out, and I literally set up a table and I have samples, and I ask the students, would you like this on the menu, yes or no? And then they get to vote. We base everything that we do for our menus off of what the students want. We at our production center can try the items, we can say we love it, but again, my palate and my taste and my visual is completely different than a 7-year-old, a 15-year-old, and so on and so forth. So that's truly exciting in my job to be able to do that. I'll be at Aldo Elementary tomorrow, doing a cookie taste testing there as well too with the students. I was fortunate to be able to do a taste testing last week at both Franklin as well as Preble. We tested 11 different new items for our menus, anywhere from chilies, chicken tortilla soup, spaghetti sauces, taco meats, all different things that the kids, we just want to continue to expand our program and offer them different items. We will also be looking at a Folgers coffee unit. That will be a hot coffee unit and an iced coffee unit. So similar to what you see at Quick Trip, they will have the option to be able to get both a hot coffee as well as iced coffee. So that will be coming to Southwest first before Thanksgiving is our hopes, and then shortly after that, Preble will be our next site that we will begin to offer that. So.
And these all will fit within the
our
USDA
regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm available for more than just just
Perfect.
Perfect.
Wonderful. That's great. All right, okay, so what you see here, this is one of our cafeterias, and it's at McCullough School, our elementary schools. And we can thank the Hunger Task Force because they did help us with getting an additional salad bar. At one time, our hot packs used to go right on top of a table like this, so the students would come to the line, they would get their hot pack right off of a table, get their salad bar, and just go. Well, what we wanted to do is we want to upscale our cafeterias for our students. So now you can see we have the milk cooler, or the little barrel, and then we have a black rack that came from the Hunger Task Force also, and that's where we're putting our forks and our trays in. Then our hot packs are in one of those Cambro salad bars, but it also holds the heat. So, and then also we have the salad bar. And what it's pretty impressive because our students are noticing this. When we put these out last year, our students at the schools said, "Are we one of those cool schools?" So that's awesome. That's just great when you're hearing that. And just about presentation, and we don't want to be serving out of boxes anymore. We're above that. So we want to have the nice baskets. We want to have the retail look, and we just want to have the approach for the students when they come in that this is their cafeteria. We want to have a wow factor. So we are getting there. We're not 100%, but we are getting there.
You're enhancing the dining experience.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, we are. We are also working, we sent out 3 bids to 3 different companies. We met with different companies. We want to get a branding for our schools also, where our signs at an elementary level, this is what our elementary schools will look like. When they go to a middle school, this is what our signage will look like. Just like if you go to a Chipotle or a Noodles, you'll have this look. And we're also doing this for high school. So middle school, when they go on to the high school level, they'll see different. But if you're at Southwest, West, Preble, all of our schools will look the same inside. So we are working with that, which is very, very exciting. And, okay, you can go to the next. And sharing tables, this is something that I know our district has been very passionate about, our food waste. And this is something that is still implemented yet today. I was out at ELC today, and they have their little table, and the students are putting their items that they don't want to eat for the day there, but then the other students who would like another applesauce cup, or they would like another juice, they know they can go up and grab that, and there's no waste, which has been working very, very well. And then the principals, they ask, can we take that? It is theirs after we're done with it. When we are completed with our meals, whatever they want to do with it. So if it's for that little stomach ache later on because they're hungrier when they come in the morning, we are trying to be conservative with what's going into the garbage, but we want to give it back to the students. So we're very passionate about working with all of the principals, the administration in our districts with feeding children. And also what another recycling milk cartons, our schools are committed to the environment, and so are we as a food service program. This is what we have. We have now, with the milk carton program, it did start at Wequiak, but now we're doing it at Elmore, Jefferson, MacArthur, and we're looking to expand to even more schools. It's very exciting. And I just received an email from a parent as we talked about, we have styrofoam trays right now. And our styrofoam trays that we serve, they cost us about $87,400 for a school year. Now, if we were to put paper trays, recyclable paper trays into our school, that would cost us $228,000. So that's a difference of about $140,900. So that is something we are looking at as a food service department, because also we are in education and we're teaching our children. And the way that we look at, and we can discuss this because obviously with that cost, it's hitting our budget. But we also, if we can stay fiscally responsible, I believe that's something we should look at for our kids in our district, go to paper trays. So that is something that we have looked at. Heidi has done the research, and I've been discussing with this with her, so she's got me the information I needed. And we have also noticed from when you looked at this, what was it, 2 years ago, that the cost of the paper trays has gone down.
Can you buy with more districts and get a break that way if we purchase the?
What's interesting with Green Bay is we are such a large volume purchase that it's not going to be a benefit for us because we're getting benefits. We are getting a very good cost for our products. Who's going to get the cost is the other districts. We've reached out and I've checked into that.
Okay.
I know my predecessor has discussed that in the past.
Okay.
But I have checked into that, and it was confirmed that the other school districts will be getting the benefits. We would not.
But the environment would.
The environment would.
Yeah.
That's right.
Even if
So,
we didn't get the monetary benefit, if we could let others
Exactly.
join us.
yes. Exactly. Yes. So also our thriving workforce. We truly believe we want to keep our staff pleased. We are very involved with our staff. Well, this is a picture of our opening meeting that we had with the food service staff. And what we did this year, we asked everyone to bring in food.
Food or school supplies
School
for our
supplies.
students.
And then we did drop off all of the items at McKinney-Vento. And we did really good. How many boxes?
We had
did
5 very large boxes of school supplies and non-perishable goods. And there were a variety of different foods that were in those boxes. And the McKinney-Vento program was very grateful for our donation, and they thought it was really cool. And I thought it was awesome to see all the different things that our food service staff brought in. They really care about the communities of their buildings, so it was really nice to bring that together.
Yes, thank you. Also, every month, oh, do you have a question?
Just no, I wanted to comment that as I'm in the schools, it's interesting that you've done a great job of explaining to the food service staff in the schools the cost of everything. Because someone from another program had asked for some sporks, and they came back with the price of sporks and how the spork allotment and stuff. I thought, whoa, okay, the message is out.
At our opening meeting, we did a Price is Right game for our staff. Because every year we have to bid out on products. So if we get our sporks from the company who we have the bid with, Heidi, it's
$13.87.
if we buy it from a company we do not have our bid with, just because we're not keeping track of the inventory,
$29.78 for the same case count price.
So we did these games with our staff because we want them to be aware too.
Yeah, that's.
So, and it was very eye-opening for them during that time. Yes, it was. Also, what we also do every month is we have a food service department newsletter. And we update that regarding, it's information on staff, what's going on in the schools, what's going on in the community. And Amanda Frist, she takes care of that in our department, and we're sending information out. And I don't know if that is something.
Could we get on your list?
I would love if you could get on our list. So would we send that to?
We send it to you, Sandy, or directly?
Okay,
thank you.
Great. We have a lot of great information in there, and we highlight our staff. People get married. We have women. We have a woman who she makes beautiful cakes. Amy shows Clydesdale horses. It's just there's a lot of great things that we just want to let people know what we're doing inside and outside of work.
Very nice.
Julie.
Do you have opportunity for the culinary students to work with your staff? And also, do the students, as they could work part-time or intern and move up into the system and all? I mean, as far as your workforce, does that play into any of the any of what you do?
Right. That is a very good question. In other school districts I worked in, yes, I did. I did work with them. And actually this summer, we did employ some students in our summer feeding program. We have done that. At Preble, Laura Spence, who is the head of the culinary department there, the teacher, I have discussed possibly working with maybe in the classroom type.
That's fine.
Yeah, so yes, there are so many opportunities for that also.
But as far as interns, we do work with UW Green Bay and their dietetic internship, and we have one dietetic intern with us right now, and she's been working mostly in the kitchen, doing some pricing and some promotional type of activities, helping to write menus and analyze food products, and we'll have another one this spring as well. So that's a really great partnership, considering the really great community and all the post-secondary opportunities we have.
Well, when you look at career opportunities, I don't think that students really think all of a sudden of this type of opportunity, but you're right there, and I mean, it just adds one more layer on to making them career and college ready, so that community ready.
Thank you.
The last slide is something that we're required to share with you with our USDA since they govern our regulations. So that's why that is there for you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative.
I should have brought samples, though.
I know, well, they were making.
We would have tested something.
All right, we will move to human resources. First is Assistant Director Food Service job description.
Carrying off from the presentation you just heard, there is a request to upgrade one of the positions in food service, and that is to make that individual an assistant director in food services. It is consistent with the needs that they feel they have in the department. This individual would oversee clericals and food service employees and would take on a greater leadership role in the department. Currently, there isn't an assistant director in that department, or that is the director, so she would report to that.
Just a quick question, and I was going to ask you while you're still at the table. Because we've added all those different meal programs after school and expanded opportunities and options, as well as our serving, what did you say, about 10,000 students a day? How many more employees do you have? Have you seen the number of people in your department or area expanded exponentially as well, or?
We are running very efficient within our program. When I look at, before I go and add labor, I'm looking at meals per man hour worked. I'm making sure that it makes sense. Just because we're doing all these programs, I just don't want to hire staff. I want to make sure that we can work it within what we're doing. We want to pilot, and then we want to monitor and make sure that it's needed.
And then did the Head Start building, that's a new building and a whole new kitchen set up for you?
Yes.
So there's a new setup there as well?
There is an employee there, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And she is part of the food service program. We monitor, we train, we oversee that program there.
Thank you.
Do board members have any questions about the job description? Comments? Nope. Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Then the next is a production manager food service job description.
Similar to the assistant director, this job description moves the individual into a more of a manager leadership role, and both job descriptions, as I say, have a great deal of compliance requirements to them because the food services department does a lot of compliance work. But also the updated job description focuses greater on the supervisory responsibilities and oversight for the entire kitchen in the district.
So are these upgraded positions?
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
neither one
currently-
is brand new, right, okay.
think with the additional responsibilities, I think that talking with Lynette, as she has shared with me, and you look at the advancements of the work, it really is getting much, much broader. So we don't have the old job descriptions there. Has the board seen those? I think that by comparison, you can see some significant, distinct differences in responsibilities that have increased.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. And then we've got the facilities project coordinator job description.
This is a new job description, as we stated in the report that we received, or the update. This is largely a result of the additional projects for the referendum that will be taken on. And so this is a new position. If the board would approve it, this position is both internally and externally. And what Mike is really, really looking for is somebody who has background in construction management. That's what we're going to do, and then working on projects. This person, we're looking at a salary range of $64,000 to $74,600 approximately. That's what we're looking at, and hoping to secure somebody. Most likely will be from outside of the district, we're thinking.
Brenda?
2 comments. I'm wondering under position purpose, the word acceptable sounds like we're settling. Can we change that to good or something a little bit better?
Okay, yes.
And then, like you said, this position is primarily monitoring the referendum projects, but I didn't get that impression just reading this job description, because there's a whole lot of other things that this person will be doing. Should that be front and center, that the primary job of this person will be doing that, or is this a job that we're intending to have past the 3 years of the referendum projects?
Yes, I think we're intending to have it pass the referendum
Okay.
project. So under the position purpose, what we could do is, the second sentence could be organizing and managing the district construction projects. That's the referendum project, but it is the second sentence, so it could be put first.
Well, but maybe it should say organize and manage district referendum. I don't know. I don't know if it matters, actually, so I will
I think
not push
Mike
it.
isn't here because he's at another meeting, but I think that he didn't put that in there because we talked about it, because if we didn't have referendum projects, he still feels there'd be enough work for this person to do. So it's not just the
Okay.
referendum projects.
Yeah, okay.
But I can mention that to him and ask him if he feels that that should be added.
I just wonder if, and I don't necessarily understand when people look at the job opening, I assume the job description is attached.
It is.
And then when they're looking at it, is it going to be clear that their first 3 years on the job is really going to be mostly managing referendum projects?
It isn't in the job description, but we can add that as a part of the posting.
Oh, okay, so you have a separate description.
We can add that, yes.
Okay,
And
all
make
right.
sure that there's a focus in the beginning on that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Other questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you, Gina. Now we're going to move to policies.
I can introduce those, and I know a lot of these policies deal with human resources, and Jean and Randy have worked on these policies as well, so if you'd like to add anything. Can we take these out of order, because they're in number order on your agenda, but they're grouped, some relate to the other ones, would that be okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I will defer to your
Is that
grouping
okay?
of the, yes, just let us,
So if we can, Lori, if we can first pull up 523.4 staff protection, please.
do you have an alphabetical letter on it?
523.4. Oh,
D.
I'm sorry, D.
Thank you.
And this policy was requested by board members regarding putting additional protections in place, or, an additional policy in place for protections that we largely do have in place for our staff members. In our harassment and bullying policy, we talk a lot about some of this language, but this just provides one extra level of protection for our staff with respect to workplace harassment and bullying, and also physical and verbal assault, violent behavior, and threats of violence or assault by a student, staff, parent, or any other community member on district property or at district-sponsored events, and provides guidance for filing complaints and disciplining employees who engage in that behavior. Any questions on this one?
Questions or comments?
Just to comment that, yeah, and I did ask for this. I wanted to have it very specifically spelled out that the board expects that the staff, the students, everyone is supported in this regard. And while it may be subsumed under other policies, I think it was important that we had this one specifically stand out.
And we appreciate your work on that. I know Dr. Langenfeld wanted to make a few comments on the appreciation of the board's work.
Thank you. This week, Wisconsin Association of School Boards is making our community, actually our state, aware of and trying to build awareness of the great work that our school board members do, that vital work of our elected officials who actually devote their commitments to students and families and public education. And I think what people don't always recognize is that the school board membership is really a very, very demanding role. Many as far as a public servant. Each of our board members who sits at the table tonight, along with Dr. Wagner and Mr. Becker, work tirelessly behind the scenes. So it isn't just showing up for a board meeting. There's monthly meetings. There's a lot of preparation behind the scenes, and they devote a great deal of time not only studying the issues around education, but also need to know the laws. They do a lot of listening to the concerns of members of our community, of our parents, and of our staff. And I think that one of the things that somebody characterized it as, they're never off the job as a member of a school board. So I just want to share that and extend our well wishes on behalf of the administration and the staff in the Green Bay Area Public Schools. We want to thank each of you and wish to thank each of you, our board members, for your commitment and your passion for serving our children and our community in public education here in the Green Bay Area Public Schools. And I know that we put a piece in the staff scoop, but want to make sure that people in our community know as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on that one? Okay. So then, similarly, the policy then 527.1, employee whistleblower protection, which is F in your packets. This policy too provides additional transparency and level of protection for our staff from being retaliated or discriminated against in situations where they report or participate in investigations or prosecutions of different types of improprieties and illegal conduct. And in addition to these legal requirements, it's the Board of Education and district's interest to ensure that employees do not fail to report wrongdoing because they fear retaliation for doing so. And I know that a number of board members had expressed concern about wanting to make sure our staff do not fear retaliation, and this policy provides that statement to our staff of the importance of working in an environment that does not have retaliation for being able to report things that need to be brought forward to administration or the board's attention.
Any questions or Ed?
On top of the third page, letter C, 4C there. I'm having trouble following number 2 there. It says that is based on non-protected reasons that would have occurred even in the absence of the employee's protected report or protected participation. Walk me through that, will you please?
Yeah.
I just can't follow that.
Okay. I just have a second to read it as well?
Where are you?
It's on page 3.
Page,
Very
yeah, the
top of
third
the
page,
page.
top of the page. It's letter
C2.
C, yeah.
Okay.
And then number 2 under it. C says that the policy is not intended to prohibit or limit the district from taking adverse employment action. Number one, that's very clear for conduct that's not undertaken reasonably in good faith, and then number two, I'm just not following that.
Sure, okay. So what this is saying is that the district may still take adverse employment action if it's based on reasons that are not protected. So we've provided those protected reasons here in the policy. And where that disciplinary action would have occurred even in the absence of an employee making a protected report or participating in a protected activity.
Okay. Would have occurred, that refers back to adverse employment. I got it now.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward.
Thank you. The next policy is 526.1, employment references and verification.
That would be letter E.
You got that? Yep, thank you. Okay, so with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Congress included language that requires school districts to adopt a policy prohibiting employees, contractors, and agents from aiding and abetting of sexual abuse in the process of the abuser seeking other employment. So we are prohibited from aiding and abetting any individual or contractor from obtaining employment if we know or should have probable cause to believe that the employee, contractor, or agent engaged in sexual misconduct regarding a minor or a student in violation of the law. And then the policy also addresses record-keeping requirements related to employment references. So this policy is to be compliant with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, as well as our record-keeping requirements for employment references.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, just,
Go ahead.
if there is adverse job action, I mean, so somebody is dismissed because of violating what this addresses here, how would a colleague know that? I mean, you know, a person's going to go to a colleague and ask for a letter of reference, which this would forbid, right?
This would forbid someone from giving a letter of reference in their capacity as a district employee,
Mm-hmm.
not as a personal reference.
I get that, but I mean, how do we get that information out then to employees so that they know that in this case you best not write a letter of reference for an individual?
Jean, do you want to speak to that?
I do.
Your procedures and.
I think that what we would have to do based on this policy is that we would have to make it clear that when an employee who is non-supervisory provides a reference for another individual, that they should make clear that it's a personal reference. They cannot give an employment reference. This makes it clear that only supervisory people, human resource people who are designated, can't provide an employment reference. And so when we check references, what we try to teach our supervisors is that when you're checking a reference of a colleague, it's not an employment reference, it's a personal reference. So I think we have to make sure that when we're providing the reference, that our employees are clear about that.
Okay.
School districts have to be now more cautious than ever that when they're checking references on employees, they're discerning between what's a personal and employment reference.
And I get that. I think we do a pretty good job of making sure that administrators are aware of those expectations.
Yes.
But I'd like to somehow make sure that the teaching staff and others who
Yes.
will be asked for letters of reference,
Yeah.
you know, that they understand that, you know,
It's-
that there are some limitations.
Yes, and I would say that they should probably start the topic sentences, this is providing personal reference for X, Y, Z, so that it's very clear that that's what they're doing. if they
We
can.
will definitely do an update in the staff scoop regarding this, so that, we've started a monthly legal update as well, so we can include it in the legal update as well as in, Jean includes an article in the staff scoop from her department.
Good, thank you.
Brenda?
Does that, occasionally I've been asked to write letters of recommendation so as a board member, so should board members do that? This is because I'm not supervisory, this is a personal reference. we should also have that same
I would say
introduction
so,
on our
yes. Mhm.
reference letters? Okay,
I would suggest that.
all right, thanks.
Jean, would it be fair to say that it's a possibility that one employee may not know the other employee has been let go due to?
That is very
an
common.
instance.
Yes. it's-
And so I don't know why Madam X got let go, but then I get a call, or they call and ask me and don't tell me. So just so they're very clear that you may not know why they're let go. So just make it a personal reference, not a.
That's why it's important, because when you provide a personal reference, you don't know the circumstances about why a person isn't working. And that's why it's so important for employers to check supervisory references or
Right.
references through a human resources department, because if you're just checking with colleagues, you don't know all of the information that you really ought to be checking.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, which,
Right, so the next companion policy is 533.1 background checks, and then Rule
Gee.
533.1 background checks procedures. This policy was updated to reflect changes with respect to the employment reference policy, as well as to separate out the language that was in this policy regarding background checks for volunteers. And that policy will be coming separately. It was updated to reflect our process here in the district. We do use a company that checks various different databases for us, and as well as reflect the process in human resources with respect to when offers are made for employment and when background checks are conducted with respect to employees. In addition, we had, with the new Head Start regulations, we are now required to conduct background checks every 5 years and do fingerprinting on Head Start employees. So those changes were made to the policy, and we went through that fingerprinting process this year.
any questions or comments on background checks? I'll take that as a no.
Okay. The next policy then would be 353.1 and Rule 353.1, school volunteers and volunteer background checks. We did not have in place a policy regarding our school volunteers, so this policy is new and breaks out the process and procedures and roles and responsibilities for volunteers. We did develop a volunteer handbook working with Randy and Jean on providing just some greater clarity for our volunteers when they come to school. What should you expect? Who should you contact? What are your roles and responsibilities? So this policy and rule reflects those guidelines that we had already been acting on. And then the rule further clarifies background checks requirements for our volunteers. We do get a lot of questions. Who's going to see my background check? Where does the information go? Do I have a right to see a copy of that information? Do I have a right to disagree with that information? And so I'm hoping that this will provide more information for our volunteers.
Brenda?
Couple questions. Does it say how often volunteers need to have background checks in here? I read it kind of fast, but I didn't,
I thought it did, and
it didn't jump out at me.
I didn't see it, but it is every 2 years.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, because I just got asked that question the other day, so I was kind of looking for it.
I did notice a line that says that the district could initiate one at any time, so that.
Yeah.
if it doesn't, that was an oversight, and I can have that added for.
And it should probably also go in the volunteer handbook too, just so volunteers.
Yep.
I
mean,
think
'cause
it may be in the
I think it is in the
Oh, it is in the
volunteer
handbook and
I
not in
believe
the.
it is.
We'll cross-reference
All right.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, actually, you answered my question by talking about the volunteer handbook. And then, sorry, I can't get it to show up here. is the part about driving, oh, here it is, on page, page 2.
Are you on the policy?
I'm on the road. Explain the end of D. The district official has expressly authorized the individual to provide such student transportation in writing. Is that something new, or what does that entail?
Are you on the?
I'm on the rule 353.1. And I'm on, they're not numbered on my sheet, but I think it's
the second page of the policy.
Yeah, it's under
policy.
It's under volunteer roles and responsibilities, Roman numeral 3, and then it's D under that.
I see, okay. This is consistent with our transporting of students in private vehicles policy. I believe it's 751.
And so what is that authorized in writing? Is that something the volunteer should have, or?
For anyone
Just
who
asking
wants
as
this-
someone who's volunteered and
Yep.
done this before.
So if you are transporting a student in, and I'm just finding the policy. 751.5, policy and rule. If an individual is transporting a student in a private vehicle on behalf of the district, you are required to go through a vehicle
Right.
inspection, and there is paperwork that is completed and put on file permitting you to do so. So that would be the reference to in writing.
We do
Except
allow-
the,
We do allow some volunteers, for example, if you have a volunteer coach and they might be asked to drive students, that this allows for that, but it has to be that somebody in a employment capacity has to request that they be authorized to drive, and then they go through a vehicle check, or they go through they have to actually meet with the health nurse in the clinic.
right, but then that last part of that sentence makes it sound like, I read that as that the principal or the coach has to provide a written authorization for someone to drive.
That's
They do.
correct.
Mhm.
So that goes through Jean's department. We have
Okay.
a form in place that they complete, and that's transmitted to Human Resources. And then that starts the process of the vehicle inspection, the background check, those sorts of things for a private vehicle to be used to transport students.
Okay. And have we always done it like that? That's not the process I'm familiar with. Okay, so this is a new process.
We started this about 2 years ago.
Okay. All right. So the volunteer has to just has that paperwork you get when you have your car inspected. They can just keep that in their glove compartment. The volunteer does not have to assure that this letter has been written and all that kind of stuff, or do they have to have that in their hand too?
The process does not start with the vehicle inspection until a district administrator provides in writing to Human Resources that this individual is being requested to provide transportation to students in private vehicles, and then that vehicle inspection would take place.
So
And
does
the
that
other
have to
requirements-
happen every time you drive? You have to have your vehicle inspected?
No,
Because
There's a duration in the
It's
policy.
been once a year is what my experience has been.
let me look in the,
So we have volunteers who can be authorized to drive students in their cars, but
But
not
not
staff.
teachers, yeah.
it's a very limited circumstance of volunteers who are authorized, and the liability is different for staff versus for volunteers.
They may also drive a rental vehicle too, so they may rent a small bus and they might be authorized to drive that as a volunteer. And it's usually in the coaching area where they're volunteer coaching. It isn't that we don't have a lot, but we have allowed it. And it starts with the recommendation or the request from the principal or an activities director, athletic director, to ask for that to happen. And then somebody from Human Resources calls that volunteer and starts the process of getting them, make sure they have a background check, and that they have to meet with the nurse in our clinic to go through an assessment to make sure they're fit.
And I saw John's head nodding when I said the liability is different for volunteers versus staff for driving students in personal vehicles. Brenda, on vehicle inspection, 751.5 rule is annually. If the vehicle is being driven, it must be inspected.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move that forward.
And then policy 353, which is A. And this policy was just updated to remove the references to volunteers because that policy has now been broken out. So this is just community instructional opportunities and resources and has removed the references for volunteers.
Any questions or comments on this one? No, we'll move that forward.
And the last one is policy 522.72 and
C.
In the rule. I see a typo on our cover sheet here. I'll change that. I have policy twice rather than policy and then rule. Currently, the district provides smartphones to administrators and other limited employees in the district. Flip phones are provided to some of our custodial staff and our nursing staff. This policy is to move away from providing those smartphones to district administrators and other limited staff and to provide a stipend instead of the actual phone to staff and allow staff to have a phone under their own carrier and then receive a stipend for that service. We would continue with the flip phones for our custodial staff and the nursing staff.
I think,
No, because I'm going to take us back to another policy.
Okay.
I think that the opportunity is not necessarily the cost, but the amount. We don't have a phone service person and people to distribute the phones and that kind of thing. So what has happened is there's been a lot of work coming out of facilities to address the phones. The flip phones for safety and security would still be there,
Right.
but rather than be the carrier, and I think Mike, and maybe if you'd like to add anything, we've talked extensively about this just in terms of the additional wear and tear, and somebody drops a phone and then somebody needs another phone, and it's kind of like if you had your own carrier, you wouldn't have to have that hassle. So some of us have always had a stipend and never had a phone here.
And then who would be eligible for these new stipends?
The policy defines the general parameters for the use as well as
And we talked about it grandfathering in over time.
the authorization for receiving those phones. And it's generally administrators or individuals in sensitive situations that needed to have access to immediate information and where we need to be in contact with individuals on a routine basis outside of the normal workday.
Anything else on this policy before Brenda takes us back to another policy? Okay, we'll move forward with this one and go back to which one?
Sorry, all the jumping around, I lost track of what I had comments on.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Group them, that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm back on 523.4, the very last page.
The first policy we discussed, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
protection?
yes.
Okay, the last page.
Last page under reporting, letter B. I'm wondering, I assume we really want our staff to report if they're aware of or witness violent assault or retaliation. And I'm just wondering if that encouraged can be made a little bit stronger? I mean, is that the intent of the the policy to make that a little bit stronger. So I was thinking either, highly encouraged or urged or whatever people think is a better word there.
That would be up to the board. What do you guys
Well, open it up to what you guys think.
You're saying it would read any person who is aware of or witnesses violence, assault, or retaliation is highly encouraged.
Yeah, or use the word or is
Strongly
urged.
encouraged.
Or urged to
Strongly.
report the behavior, strongly encouraged, something along those lines.
I like strongly.
I like strongly.
Let's go with
Oh, yeah,
strongly.
that's much better than highly, yes.
Right. And urge, no, I think
Okay.
strongly encouraged. We do that?
Yep.
Any other trips down memory lane for these policies?
Down memory
Okay,
lane.
then I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
And that concludes the organizational support work session.
All right, then we do have a closed session. I will read that motion. Closed session has been scheduled Monday, October 2nd, immediately following the adjournment of the work session meetings pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, potential contracts. And pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which if discussed in public would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Dorf?
Aye.
Janish?
Aye.
Maloney? McCoy?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye. Carried 5-0, and we'll convene the class.